My name's Grant. That's my dad, Lowell Cohn. Usually we have mild-mannered, good-natured discussions. Today we have a heated debate about who the Niners quarterback should be. My dad noticed that I've really been pushing Jimmy Garoppolo out the door, and I just put a poll on Twitter. Half the fan base wants Jimmy Garoppolo to start, so we should balance the discussion. My dad seems to be on Jimmy's side, so let's debate it out. Dad, who do you think should start week one and why?
Okay. I say emphatically Jimmy Garoppolo should start week one.
Okay.
Of course, unless he's hurt. But all things being equal, he should start because I don't believe there's any way Kyle Shanahan can learn in training camp or in the mini camp he never had, or in training camp or in preseason games, who is better to start a real NFL game. I think it would be Jimmy has more experience. Jimmy, when he's well, has played sometimes very well. The other kid, there is no way of knowing how he'll respond. If I were the coach, would bring him along more slowly. And again, I think there is historical precedent on my side. Bill Walsh, who was a better offensive coordinator than Kyle and was a better head coach, brought Joe Montana, who was maybe the greatest quarterback who ever lived, brought him along very slowly behind Steve DeBerg, who wasn't the greatest quarterback who ever lived. So I feel emphatically that Jimmy should start week one. What is your counter argument?
Okay, if this were 1979, if this were any time before 1994, when the salary cap was instituted, I would agree with you. If there were no salary cap in the NFL, it'd be a no-brainer. It wouldn't even be a discussion. You would keep both, you would pay for both, and you would have two quarterbacks. With the salary cap, I feel like you always have to talk about the value of a player. And with Jimmy Garoppolo, he has experience. He's the fifth highest paid player in the league. He's the most overpaid player in the league. There is no way that he's worth $27 million. I mean, this is a year in which the salary cap has gone down, and most starting quarterbacks have renegotiated their deal to get below $10 million just so they can compete. Jimmy hasn't done that because renegotiating would involve an extension, and the Niners aren't going to give him that. So he's just expensive right now. And I really believe that it's extremely hard to compete to win a Super Bowl paying one mediocre player elite money. And I do consider him mediocre, Dad. I know he started his career 14-2. Since then, he's 10-7. His last 12 starts, including the playoffs, his quarterback rating is 89. That's Jared Goff. I think he and Jared Goff are about the same. And I think the stance you're taking right now, you can't move on from Jimmy, would be like a Rams analyst last year saying you got to give Jared Goff one more chance. No, I think we've seen enough.
Iggy, let me ask you this. By the way, you made very good arguments.
I tried my best. You came out hard.
It's great. And calling him a mediocre quarterback, I have no problem with that. I have no problem. I've called him serviceable plus.
Same thing.
I have no problem with that. So we're okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a money question.
Sure.
Are the Niners over their salary cap right now?
No, they're not.
Where do they stand vis-a-vis the salary cap?
Technically, they have $17 million in salary cap, but they haven't signed Trey Lance, Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas, their top three of their top four draft picks. Plus, they got to give Fred Warner his extension, which they will. So they'll be at about $3-4 million in salary cap space when the season starts.
Okay, so I understand your very cogent arguments that Jimmy isn't worth the money and he clutters the salary cap, so it's hard to sign other people. But in fact, they have the money, they have the salary cap space, and they'll probably be able to sign the players they need to sign. It's not your money. It's not my money. What do we care?
Let me do my best to answer that. If they were to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo and his salary and his money, I would say they could use that on 2 to 4 players that they could bring in this year who would be contributors and good. You could bring in a pass rusher. There's a lot available right now. You could bring in a safety. They just lost a guy to a torn Achilles. They could trade for a cornerback. So I'm saying if it's close between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, the team you can put around Trey Lance is 3 good players better. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, again, let's imagine the scenario that they get rid of Jimmy because they want to be prudent and they want to have all this money and freedom to sign better players. What happens if the kid comes out, gets hurt, or he's not ready? And again, they're not going to know he's ready until it's a real game, not a preseason game. So the backup to him is Josh Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
With a roster like this, you would go on a guy. Now, Rosen may end up very good. He's only 24, but he's a bust so far. Bust.
Yes.
And the other guy is really an unknown. You
Yes.
would trust that roster to a bust and an unknown? Again, I understand your points. I acknowledge them, and I think you're making a very strong case. My gut tells me you're wrong.
Fair. I just have a tough time envisioning a future where Trey Lance dazzles in training camp, dazzles in the preseason, wins the starting job, falls on his face in the regular season. That like the pressure of a real game totally crumbles him. Maybe it could happen, but what I've noticed the last 10, 15 years is the quarterbacks who can run around often have success early on. Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they seem to have success early on because while they're not really sure what they're looking at, they can outrun problems and create big plays. It's the pocket passers that tend to struggle early on because they really have to know what they're seeing. So I think even if he's not going to be perfect early on, but he's going to be able to do things that Jimmy can't do. And the thing is, Jimmy's not perfect either. There's good Jimmy and bad Jimmy.
I know, of course. And we make fun of him when he's bad Jimmy, and we expect him to appear. I have a harder question for you.
Sure.
We've both given our points of view, and they're contending, and each has merit.
Yes.
In real life, what do you think the 49ers are going to do? Not what they should do. What are they going to do?
I think they're going to give the job to Trey Lance if he plays well enough. I think if he plays well in preseason and training camp, that'll be enough. And I think they'll move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they're going to hold on to Jimmy through the competition. But if they're having a competition, then there should be a winner, right? I mean, if they're having a competition in training camp, then it should count. And if they've set it up that way and Trey Lance wins and he wins over the entire locker room, the way that Colin Kaepernick did eventually with him and Alex Smith, then it'll be his team. I think but he'll have to prove it. I know you're saying preseason doesn't really count. They spent 3 picks to move up to get him. If he looks good in preseason, everyone's going to want him on the field, including his teammates.
We've already bet on this, haven't we?
We do. That's why I think I'm trying to win this bet. So I'm trying to basically push the Niners in the right, and maybe it's not even the right advice, but I really think it would be a very nice bottle of wine that you're going to give. You have great taste. And the bottle of the wine that you give me, I really enjoy.
So the bet for everybody out there, which I'm recalling, is we bet who's going to start game 1.
Yes.
I'm saying Jimmy, and Iggy is saying Trey Lance. Do you remember what we bet?
$50 bottle of something nice, but I forget the varietal and the region.
Okay. Iggy, would it be okay if we don't try to win this argument, if we just presented our points of view and people can take them for what it's worth?
Absolutely. So let's just summarize. I think Trey's going to start week 1. You think Jimmy's going to start week 1. Yeah. And then if Trey does win the competition, you think Jimmy Garoppolo should stay as a backup. I think that's an expensive backup, but let's try to find a compromise here. If the Niners could get Jimmy Garoppolo to agree to a contract, to a pay cut, let's say, look, we could cut you and let you leave, but we've calculated that you'd probably get this kind of an offer. We'll give you a better offer. We need to lower your salary cap. You just lost the competition. You're a backup now. We'll give you, instead of giving you $27 million this year, we'll give you 12. And we think that's better than you could do in the open market. Would you stay? I'd be cool with that.
I would as well. If he loses, if the Niners really want to start the kid in the game 1, which I don't think they're going to want to, that would be a perfect solution. And I do think that Parag, I have misgivings about Parag. We don't talk about him much.
Yeah.
But I do think he's clever enough to do something like that.
It's not the most outrageous thing to ask Jimmy Garoppolo. They've given him $90 million for about 30 starts. I mean, maybe he could take a slight pay cut if he loses the competition.
I love it.